Good day, everybody. A lot of people are constantly asking me, how did I become a medical missionary? What was my life like? What's it like in Guyana? So many questions. And I thought it fitting that I present a testimony of myself that perhaps will give some sense of who I am and how I came to know what I know and why I do what I do. So Romans 8:28 is my favorite scripture in all of the Bible. And I love the Bible. I memorize chapters of the Bible. I've been doing that since I was a child. But this scripture in a special way speaks to me. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his promise. And you'll see as we go along that it makes sense. So my family, how I became a Seventh-day Adventist. Well, that's an interesting scenario. So that's my dad and my mom and my two brothers and myself. So my dad grew up Seventh-day Adventist, but in a very, very strict household, and he left. In fact, all his siblings left. It was 9 of them, and all of them left the church. My father became a DJ. He had a really lovely voice, and he was on the radio in Guyana. He met my mom. She was Catholic, so Catholic that she joined the convent and was going to become a nun. But because of inconsistencies in the convent, she and a few friends left. But this didn't stop her from being Catholic. And I grew up Catholic. I remember going to the church, and it was an awesome place. I remember all the statues. We used to go to St. Pius Catholic Church. I remember we couldn't wait until we could get the little wafer that the priest would put in the mouth. Everything seemed so holy. And we went to Catholic Church pretty regularly. Now, my dad got sick. And when he got sick, I was only 7 years old. I remember my father with joy. I remember him doing different things, whistling, all sorts of little things. But when I was 7, he got very sick. It was 1992. And my dad decided when he got very sick that he was going to do 2 things. He was going to marry my mother, and he was going to make sure that his entire family was in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That was going to be his legacy, and he did. He married my mom, and very much soon after that, we all got baptized as a family at the Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist Church. I remember I didn't have a clue what baptism was. I was thinking it was a very nice baptismal font to swim in. But therein started my life's journey. Even before then, even in the Catholic Church, my life journey with Christ. In that very same year, not too long after, my father became even more ill. He was bedridden, and he was bedridden for many months whilst my mother took care of him. And then he died. We stayed in the church where he placed us, and we grew. In those days, the church would preach real sermons. I remember them preaching sermons about Jesus coming soon, and your skin would crawl. You get goosebumps because you really believed what was being said. And I still really believe that. So that's how I became a Seventh-day Adventist. Into this scenario, I have great family, and my brothers, as you can see, they're the superheroes of my life, and they will now and always be. They're not perfect, but they've been great brothers. So I've seen how a man should be to some extent. They're gentlemanly, they're kind, they're strong. They're the kind of guys that you can go into battle with. And if you get a bullet, they're going to fetch you out and risk their lives to make sure that you get out. And so the greatest want of the world is the want of men. And I've had these two giants in my life that have just been a blessing in several ways. So as a little girl, I was in Sacred Heart Primary School, and that is a Catholic primary school again, and the priest there was very nice. They're good people in the Catholic Church. They just don't have the truth. And I was educated. So my mom, I've had just the greatest mom. She taught us on the door in our home. We grew up poor. Now, poor is relative. So let me explain what I mean by grew up poor. What I mean is that I learned to fast at a young age because we didn't have food. There was nothing to eat. So you opened the cupboards and they were bare. It was a blessing to me, so I don't regret growing up poor. I would stay away from school for weeks at a time because I didn't have food, and my mother was concerned that I would be too weak to go to school because we didn't have food. I remember even in high school, my mom would buy a shirt and she would turn that shirt out and she would change the collar so that I can keep wearing it for several terms because we didn't have money to buy anything. It was my mom. She was on her own. And in Guyana, the country that I've come from, is third world, and things were rough. But I had family. I had these wonderful people around me. And what my mom did was that she would teach us on the door of our room. And she would actually come to my primary school, sit in the back of the class to learn what the teacher was teaching, so that when we came home with homework, she could help us because things were being taught in a different way than she had learned. And so for all of us children, we were always on top of our class. I brought first every single term in my primary school, except once. A guy by the name of Simeon Mo beat me once. I got second, and I remember I cried. I cried because I got beaten. So being smart was just part of what we were. We were poor, but we were very smart. All of us got the best schools that were available in our country. Modeling. I modeled when I was very, very young in primary school. I have been blessed by the Lord with some amount of beauty. And I've always been asked in high school, even older, why I didn't go into modeling, because my mother taught me how to walk because she learned these things in finishing school. And I would always tell people, and I still tell them, I wanted to be a model for Christ, and I hope I'm fulfilling that. So again, my mom she's been wonderful. So my mom has been a mother and a best friend, and she still is both. How she did that, but I don't understand all that my mother did, but I just know that as I read now in Adventist home what a mother should be, I realize that my mother did so many things right. And she didn't have Adventist home. What she did have was the Lord, and she would fall asleep on her knees praying for us, because my mom was determined to be the best mother that she could be. And her life story is pretty amazing. So to a great degree, mothers, the destiny of your children rests in your hands. And how a mother is and what she is, to a great degree, forms and shapes what a child will be. High school was interesting. So when people go to high school, many times that's when they're really seen. And my mom did such a good job in the formative years of our lives that when I reached high school, and we entered high school when I was 12 years old, my mother gave me freedom. So I never had a structure of, you can't do this, you can't do that. By the time I reached 12, my mother gave me permission to do many things. She said, for example, if you want a boyfriend, Latoya, that's okay, just let me know about it. But she had already laid such a foundation that all through high school, I wasn't interested. I mean, what were you going to do with a boy in high school? That was the thought in my mind. So by the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I spent about 5 hours, many days, just studying the scriptures. I wanted to know what was written in Daniel and what was written in Revelation. I wanted to understand this woman on this scarlet colored beast. I wanted to understand the horns. And so much of my teenage years was spent in study. I remember spending so much time with the elders in my church because I was drawn to them, because what they were talking about, America in prophecy and all the things, was so interesting to me. Studying about the sanctuary and the colors and the pillars and every little thing had a meaning. As I was studying far more Bible work than I was schoolwork, because my schoolwork even began to suffer a little bit, which again for me was strange because I was brought up to just do very, very well. And it's not that I wasn't doing very well. I could have done better, but a large share of my time was just in the Bible. And I don't regret it, because that which I was learning about was of far greater importance than this other stuff. So during high school, I remember, I don't know, maybe I was 15 years old, and I felt like my friends were just changing. And one day I was talking to one of my friends, his name was George, and I said, George, you guys are changing so much. And George looked me in the eyes, I'll never forget it, and he said, no, Latoya, we aren't changing, you are. And that was the first time I realized that the Word of God, when you spend time with it in a way that I can't explain and I don't need to, it begins to change you, how you behave, everything. It just happens almost by magic, but I'm more going to call it miracle. By the time I was 17 years old, I was finished school. I wanted to go on to become study theology at USC and minor in medicine. I was refused the scholarship by my conference because I was not a man. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to go teach, because I had been teaching even whilst I was a teenager. I was always teaching in ministry in our church and teaching academics to other students. And I remember once sitting on a Friday night and I was watching 3ABN, and David Gates came up and he said they needed missionaries in my country. And I said, well, that's something. I'm going to do that. And I ended up at Kimbia Mission Academy, which was a wonderful experience. I was assistant dean of the children there, and the books in Kimbia Mission Academy in the library I just loved it. It was a wonderful time, a special experience in my life. And I remember whilst I was there and it was going very, very well, my mother followed me out there. And then my brother, the younger of the two, he was becoming a safety engineer. He had gone through Texaco's school, I guess, of learning. And he was actually climbing the ladder in that way. And I remember he said he was he was overseeing cleaning one of the tanks way up high in the city. And he looked around and he said to himself, what am I doing here? It's all going to burn anyway. And he ended up following me into a mission as well. So I had my mother and my younger brother now in mission with me, and a little leaveneth the whole lump. That can be negative, but it can also be positive. So several people actually followed me out into mission. It wasn't long in the mission that I ended up becoming very sick. And before I had left to go to Kimbia Mission Academy, Dr. Mayman Wilson had come to our country, and for the first time we had a real, I guess, more information. He did lectures on medical missionary work. But before this, several things had already happened. My mom, who had always been active all of her life, she was a swim instructor, she was a nurse, she was so many things. She was a midwife. She was a cleaner. She did several things and whatever she needed to do in order to have us have food. And I remember, I don't know, I was a teenager, maybe 14 or something like that. Mom thought that her stomach was getting too high. She said, I've never been fat. What is this? And so she decided what she was going to start to do was sit-ups, crunches. And she was doing crunches in the house. And she crunched up and she could not go down back. She was in so much pain, and it took her several minutes before she could lay back down on the ground, and she knew something was wrong. She went to Davis Memorial Hospital, which is a Seventh-day Adventist hospital in Guyana, and they told her she needed emergency surgery. There was a cyst inside of her stomach, and so she went in and she had emergency surgery, and they took out a 7-pound cyst out of my mother, and they put it in a bottle, and I remember going to see it. And so the belly weight that she was having was because of something in her that was growing, not because she was actually getting fat. And the doctor there, who was at the time doing service in Guyana, it was a doctor from the USA. When she saw the size of the cyst, she was very concerned that my mother might have cancer, and so she tested several samples to see if they were cancerous, and they were. My mother had first stages, according to the medical world at that time, of cancer in the breast. And she gave my mother several treatments, but they were expensive, and I remember we didn't have money. So my mom could not afford the things that she was telling her that she would need. So my mother decided to do the one thing that she knew and that she had learned in the Adventist church. She was going to become vegetarian. She stopped eating overnight everything that has a mother or a liver. And she would cook for us at the side, varying things, meat, fish, etc. But, she would cook her food and then meat and fish so we could add it. It wasn't long, though, before all of us just did what mom did. There wasn't a thought about it. It wasn't a plan. We were just so close. We still are. So we had already begun helping people. After Dr. Mayman came, we'd already began putting into practice several things even before I reached Mission Academy. After quite a while at Kimbia, I began to become very sick. And I was very, very sick there. I remember Brother Warren came and he asked me, Latoya, do you want to go to the hospital? And I looked at him and I said, yes, no. If any of you know me, I'm never trying to go to the hospital. Even then, and it's even so more, but now at least I know what to do. Then we were again just in the learning phases. So many things could have gone wrong. And I remember he said the mission pilot couldn't come because they were taking out somebody that was pregnant. So I would have to go by speedboat. My mom came with me. I was fainting like every couple of minutes as I walked towards the dock, because Kimbia Mission Academy was in a rivering area, to get into the speedboat. And when I finally got into the speedboat, I remember being really out of it. I can't remember everything. It would take about 4 hours for me to reach the hospital. And as soon as I reached the hospital, a wheelchair was gotten for me. I was placed in it, and immediately I was transported to a bed where I was placed on oxygen. Whilst in the hospital, I was diagnosed with pneumonia, and I was given very, very strong medication, had to be taken in the largest muscle of the body, in so much that after I was discharged, I could not sit on my butt for several weeks. I was seen by doctors, several of them had so many x-rays done. And so they released me after 2 weeks. Everybody thought I was getting better, but that wasn't the truth, because a week later, I began to become very ill. I began to become more ill than I was before I went to the hospital. so ill that I couldn't eat anything. I would throw up anything I ate. And my mom, again, she was there every 2 hours. She brought me either orange juice, almond milk, or something else. How we got through this time is because people brought stuff. They brought food, they brought fruit, and my mom would blend it, strain it, because I couldn't eat anything. I wasn't really sleeping because anytime I lay down, I would cough. And I spent many nights just coughing. My flesh withered. If you've seen me in any of my videos, I'm about 140 pounds. I went down by the time they tested me, and that was when I was getting better. I was about 92 pounds, so maybe I got all the way down to, 80 something. I remember people coming to see me and them remarking how skeletal I looked. I was on a bedpan, I could not walk, and everyone believed that I was going to die. When I was really low, somebody came and they said, take her x-ray over to the clinic. People thought maybe I had AIDS. They thought maybe I had a cancer that was unknown, but I had done so much testing and everything had come back negative. And I couldn't have gone anywhere because wherever I had to go, I would have to be fetched. So my brother took my x-ray over to this lung specialist who was at the time in Guyana. He stood in the line, waited for his turn. He showed the doctor the x-ray. The doctor looked at the x-ray, looked at my brother and asked him, is this person still alive? And my brother said, yes, she is. And the specialist said, she has tuberculosis and she needs to be taken to the chest clinic immediately because really, I shouldn't have been alive. Now, that was a hard experience for me. It wasn't such a bad experience for me. It was more bad for the people that were trying to help me. At least I thought I was ready to die. So, I made everything right. I was like, I'm going to die. But it has given me sympathy and empathy with those that are ill so that I can do my work as a medical missionary better, having understood what it's like when you can't eat and you're throwing up and you can't sleep and you're in pain and your muscle has wasted so you can't walk and you're on a bedpan and you can no longer bathe yourself or brush your teeth or wipe yourself. I understand. Well, I was able to get better because as you can see, I'm still here. And I left as soon as I was well enough to go to do Bible work, and I was a Bible worker for about a year when my grandmother got cancer, and we came back to take care of her. And we started taking care of many other people in our homes doing medical missionary work. So this lady here was from Romania, and she contracted filaria, and we didn't have a tub to do the type of treatment she needed. At this time, the brother that had come out to Kimbia Mission Academy had left to study medical missionary work at UC Pines. And so when we had a case that I didn't know what to do, we would call him. He would tell us. If he didn't know, he would ask Dr. Agatha or some other doctor there, and we would figure out what to do. This lady is being treated in an old fridge. So we took the fridge and we locked off the bottom and we filled it with water. We burned wood outside and heated the water and fetched it in by buckets so that she could have fever treatments. And fever treatments are the most powerful therapy in hydrotherapy in naturopathic lines. By the way, she was completely healed. And not too long after that, we decided that we needed a place where we wanted to really promote the gospel, the three angels messages, along with the medical missionary arm. And so Rockstone happened, and how Rockstone came about is another miracle, because you don't get land in my country unless you have money in the bank. And we didn't have any money in the bank. We had $25, 25 US dollars that we placed in the account to open it so that we would have a bank account to show that we had a bank account. But Lord wanted this done, and Rockstone became a place where what we wanted to do was have trade the medical missionary work, and the gospel ministry, all together doing evangelism. That was the point. And this was another scenario. I've lived in a tent, a literal tent. Like, you go camping in for 2 years. And after living in a tent, I've lived in a carport for another, 3, 4 years. I don't remember. So I've been living in tents and plastics. I know what it's like to have a tarantula on your net in the morning, mosquitoes, dengue fever, all sorts of things in order to make this thing happen. I don't regret a thing because I've learned so much, and not only learning, I can't explain it. When we are in the will of God, following what He would have us to do in nature, our mind grows. And I can't explain how that happens, but it just does, and it did to me. I had all kinds of strength training exercises because we had to clear land. I had to learn to use a brush cutter because grass doesn't stop growing in the Caribbean. Lots of planting because we wanted our own food. And had the opportunity to have amazing experiences with animals of all sorts and kinds, insect family, mammalian family. I mean, you name it in terms of the rainforest, seeing jaguars that have been just feet away, and I'm on my feet by myself, and they're on their feet by themselves. Interesting interactions. And even though we're this side of sin, man still has dominion, and God still protects you and allows you to actually use that dominion somewhat. Still, God is still good. There was so much in this time, so much friendships made, and so much outreach done. I mean, you name it, whether it was meeting people's needs in terms of helping them with whatever we were able to get, sharing out literature, books, doing Bible studies, doing medical missionary work at the study. We would go and see what was needed in a person's home. We would sit on their floors and talk to them. We would fix their steps if it needed fixing, or help them with a swollen arm if that's what was needed. We prayed with them and we loved them, and they loved us back, and they appreciated what we did. And many of them did not receive the gospel as in becoming baptized, but even now they'll see us and they'll tell us, you have the truth. So I've learned long ago that the Christian only needs to plant seeds. When it's watered, and the fruit that it bears is up to the Holy Spirit. We started up a church. I mean, we did so much. I can't mention it, so I'm just going to go. And the treatments, and the consultations, and the seminars, and we used what we had. So sauna treatments were done within the tent. You lay in the tent, head outside of the tent so that your head is not getting hot in the sun, and you're sweating bullets. We went into people's homes because, of course, we didn't have a facility, into the people's homes and treated them in their homes. We did so many cooking schools. We spoke at so many churches. It was a wonderful time. And as that was going on, I was learning how to use a table saw and a drill and fix the car and mix cement by hand and plaster. I know to tile and all sorts of things, plumbing, because in the mission field, it's not just about being a good evangelist. It's just being able to help where help is needed. We were able to actually have one 6-month course, 3 girls that we had, and it was a wonderful experience. They completed the training very successfully. And because of financial struggles, really, we weren't able to get what we needed to get our place completed to where it needed to be, that we stopped for a long time. And several other things happened that were just not allowing us to fulfill what we wanted to do. But nevertheless, for me, I was still so much in love with the Lord and still wanting to do what the Lord wanted me to do, whatever whatever it took. During this time as well, we had the accident. And in the accident, we fell off of a 50-foot bridge, landed turtle in the car. And you can see the pictures. When the police officer came to survey the accident, his question to the people that were there, because we were already taken by ambulance to the hospital, he said, "Anybody survived?" And the folks said, "Yes, all 3 of them." By the way, by this time when we entered into Rockstone, my eldest brother, because remember in the first picture it was 2 brothers and myself, I'm the youngest, so the younger brother had already joined mission. But when we reached to Rockstone, the elder brother joined mission. So my entire family is with me in the mission, and I'm really happy for that. But we survived. I had a broken nose bridge. I was burnt badly on my back. I couldn't walk when I got out of this car. And we went to the hospital for a day, 2 days, and we were supposed to be transferred to the bigger hospital, but we said no, we want to go back to Rockstone where my brother was. He had come back from Uchee Pines with his wife, Sister Olga. We want to go there. They'll know what to do for us, and they did. And we were able to recover our strength. Not back to maximum. I don't think I'll ever recover my strength back to maximum this side of heaven. I think the Lord left me with a couple of problems that is good for pride. You know, whenever you're a speaker and you have so many people impressed by a lot of things that you do, it's easy to become proud, overconfident. But when you have pain is something that brings everybody down to level. And so I thank God even for the accident. It was a blessing. And that's why I told you in the text, all things work together for good. I've had the opportunity to be a part of many trainings again and seminars. And here at the Hayes, I was teaching entrepreneurship to these young people. It wasn't just a few of them. There were about 20-something of them that were there. And just having an opportunity to plant again seeds. I had during the time students that lived with me and I tutored them. So I had some remarkable results following God's education method. I got students grades up from 40-something% to 80 percentile in 2 months. Because when they came to live with me, we would garden. They were on a plant-based diet, and I would teach them in a way that was very, very particular to them. Because I've been teaching so long that God has really blessed me in this. And even now, the villagers want me to teach. They say, "Will you teach? We will pay you to teach the children." So heaven is all about family, all about love. And my family is here, and I love them to bits. But heaven is also about food. My video editor thought I should put that there because the next slide is food, and he knows that I love food. And he was telling me that in heaven there's going to be this long table, so we added that there. And as you can see, food is something that I love to do, and I got that from my mom. I remember her teaching me how to bake bread when I was a child. I would make like these little bread stick men, and she would bake it. And I would have my own like stick men bread, and never stopped. When we became plant-based, as you can see these little sunflower muffins, I wanted to know how to make everything that we used to eat plant-based. And so I love creativity, I love experimentation, I love a lot of things. And so as I was cooking and people were eating, they said, "Latoya, you need to get a cookbook." And the Lord made that happen by another miracle, and the miracle after miracle after miracle in my life. And that's why the text, all things just work together for good. And there's my niece. It's her 10th birthday, and she was really happy because she wanted cake and pizza. So Rockstone today looks pretty much like that. It's unfinished. There are 3 unfinished buildings on the property. And downstairs has a small guest center. And it needs help. We need financial help and people help. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, then you can always feel free to donate. But we do have a farm. We have never stopped farming. And so we have been preparing for the time that is coming upon the earth by an overwhelming surprise, but it should not be a surprise for those who know the Lord and love the Lord. So we have been preparing. Me today, well, I am still very much involved in all things that I showed to you. I'm still very much lover of my family. I'm still single. I am a lover of children, so I'm still involved in children's ministries. I'm a lover of animals and a lover of food and a lover of everything beautiful that God has given us. I am a speaker, and of course, I'm now a YouTuber, and I'm only a YouTuber again because people said, Latoya, you should put your presentations on YouTube so other people can see it. I'm not very good at publicity, at getting myself out there. I never was. And the Lord has just placed people in my life that are much better at that. So I've now been able to help more people, and I'm blessed whenever I help, because my purpose on the earth is to help people be happy in their body, soul, and spirit. That's my purpose. And I've been enjoying doing that, and I hope to enjoy doing it more. I am still a medical missionary, helping people recover from disease, and doing so many things. I still enjoy the garden and farming as well. The Lord has blessed me, and I just want to be the kind of person that when you look at me, you can say, that's a daughter of the King. And so all things have worked and continue to work together for good in my life. And I hope that you will take the Lord into your life too, and see how He can make everything, just everything, even the mistakes that you have made, come to be just good to you. The Lord uses whatever. And so may the Lord indeed bless you.